Special personality, intercommunion. You say that you want to intercommune with the special personality in existence today, where I have already given you the method. Sit in meditation for some time, praying sincerely to God for it. The physical form of the personality may come to your view. If you want to see him with your physical eyes, it can also be possible if you are keenly eager to trace him out. But intercommuning with him can be possible only after sufficient advancement. For an answer to your question as to where you should seek for him, I would only say just above yourself, or else seek him at the highest level up to which the stream of your thought can flow. In a fit of emotion, you might as well say, please show him to me. What I have to say to it is that my thought is and has ever been inclined towards it, and I am trying to make the manifestation of the personality with all its effects possible to you. Any doubt? Can I go? Can I read next?
Yes, yes. Okay.
Misconception regarding yoga. Some say if you take up the path of yoga, you will be faced with serious affliction and difficulties throughout your life. That is the view of the weak and the superstitious people and must never be accepted on practical grounds. Besides, if it happens to be so at all, what harm can there be if, by undergoing affiliation for a life, one is likely to be saved from the miseries of all the subsequent lives? So please do what seems to be appealing to you using your own discretion, or else rely upon the experience of a practical man. Avtaras. I do believe in the theory of avtaras, and Lord Ramchandra was one of them. He was of immense help during his own regime, but with the advent of Lord Krishna, the regime of Lord Rama was over. It is now the regime of Lord Krishna which is to continue till the next avatar comes into the world. This is the phenomena of nature which I bring to light for your understanding. For myself, I can say that gods as they are were there even before I had submitted myself to my master. But none of them ever felt inclined to pull me up. It was my master alone who picked me up to help me in the pursuit. Whom should I now be indebted to the gods or to my great master? As a matter of fact, gods are the various powers of nature set up to work out her designs. In that respect, they are therefore like the different parts of a machine. The avatars too have generally induced people to worship God, and if one adheres to them, he must follow their advice in the literal sense. Singing of hymns in praise of gods may promote the feeling of bhakti and may thus be useful to some extent, but they can never be helpful to you in the solution of your real problem. It would therefore be better if during leisure hours you rest your thought on the all pervasiveness of God and try to remain in that thought so long as you have time. This may serve a double purpose of constant remembrance and of a happy pastime as well. This is for everyone to follow in all seriousness.
Pause. Many times people ask, right, can they continue the other forms of worship? And this is where Master has answered. For myself, I can say that the gods as they are were there even before I had submitted myself to my master, but none of them ever felt inclined to pull me up. It was my master alone who picked me up to help me in the pursuit. Whom should I now be indebted to the gods or to my great master? Anything to add, sir?
Man, as a part of the manifestation, like all other beings, was subject to the effect of the root force, and so are the avatars. The difference between an ordinary man and an avatar is that man is enclosed with numerous seats, while an avatar is free from most of them. They have the divine within in their perception, while a man is deprived of it. Thus, though the origin of man and the avatar is the same, the avatar is in closer contact with the divine. Everything he stands in need of comes to him from the eternal store. He receives divine commands to guide him in his work, which are popularly known as divine inspiration, Devani. For a man, too, it is quite possible to receive divine commands, but only when he has attained a similar state of elevation. The origin of man is similar to that of the universe. It was what is known as soap, primary stir, which stimulated motion and activity. The reflection of soap exists in man as well as in other beings. If it is not there, then no activity could be possible. In man, this reflection of soul is known as mind or manas, which is an indispensable factor of existence. In the lower region or pindes, it is known as the Pindi mind, while in the Brahman Mandal, it is known as the Brahmanda mind. At higher levels, it goes on becoming further refined. The condition at each level differs from those at the others, and they may be innumerable. Now, since avatars possess activities, the possession of mind or manas is necessary for them also. But theirs is purer and more balanced, and their actions are strictly in accordance with the divine will. It is wrong to presume that avatars don't possess mind or manas.
Any questions?
The avatars come down for a definite purpose, endowed with all the necessary power required for the accomplishment of the work allotted to them. In other words, that may serve as the samskara which brought them down into the world. The power withdraws after their work is finished. This may be sufficient as an answer to your query about the theory of Bhoga for avatars. Strictly speaking, it is we who have set up the creation by providing the material which formed its basis. In it, the function of God was but nominal except for the primary free stroke of will which freed up action. The actual root of all things in existence was matter which existed in essence form. Just in the same way as the root of all machinery is the iron ore under the earth. The stroke of wheel was full of high velocity, which is still there and shall continue till the end. In this respect, the beginning and the end of creation are like the two extremities of the same velocity. The middle space comprising the real force was the main instrument for bringing into existence the entire structure of the universe. It possesses immense power and gives out shocks like those of an electric current. The middle portion serves as the center. A little below there is the chief activating force which serves as the cause. There is also another point where something like an animating force exists in proper moderation. I put it as only a few millimeter distance because of its being observed from a great distance. But if one takes a closer view of it after getting out of his body limitation, the distance would then appear to him as unlimited. The higher we go above the central point, the dimmer becomes the force. And this serves to indicate our closer proximity with the real. The dim force is that which falls to man's lot, while the stronger force at the central point falls to the lot of the avatars, who are fully charged with the condition of the point. Lord Krishna as an avatar had come down from the sphere of the central point, while Lord Ramchandra came from that of the other end. For this reason, he had more of human synonymity in him. He present to as an ideal life as one must try to have as a man.
Anything to add, sir?
Sir, can you explain?
There is nothing to explain. These are all, if you meditate, you will experience the peace which comes when your mind is linked to that God. And if you continue to meditate, your mind becomes purer and purer, and it starts traveling towards the goal. And as you start traveling towards the goal, these experiences should come as per this article of Babuji. So it is an experiential matter, not to be understood with your intellect. It is an experience which you will feel in the state of your mind. So your intellect is used to analyze things which are external to you. If you want to study how a watch is made, how a computer is made, for that you can use your intellect to understand physics, chemistry, biology and all that. But these are all things which you experience or imperience when you're meditating it. A little bit you can understand straight away. He is trying to say that both avatars, that means Lord Rama and Krishna and human beings, all come from the same source called Kshob actually. And avatars, their mind is, since it's very pure, they're very conscious of the presence of the divine force, and they come with a clear agenda or a clear goal, and for that they have the power of God with them. And when they finish that object, their force is withdrawn and their regime comes to an end. And he says the Lord Ramchandra's regime has come to an end and Sri Krishna's regime is now still continuing. That is the point he's trying to make.
Okay.
Regarding the present personality at work today, so far as my reading goes, I can say that he comes down from the region beyond the central point and hence is in a position of highly potential powers. Though to our outer view, they may appear to be dim or subdued, none of the avatars who have come so far came down to the earth and have ever been bestowed with the power of the root. I reveal this on the basis of my reading of nature, through the grace of God, who alone is the real knower of things. Sri Aurobindo has talked so much about the supermind, which he claimed he was bringing down upon the earth. But as a matter of fact, it always comes down upon the earth when some superior force in the form of a special personality is in existence in the world. It is not actually the supramental that works by itself for the changing of the character of the world, but a still stronger power of the subtlest nature, which I might, for the sake of understanding, call as supramental, which is above the level of sattva, rajas, and tamas. Higher above there is a still greater force which is used and can be utilized by the personality who comes down for the special work of nature. There is every hope for the betterment of India and the world at large. The personality working for the change of the world has almost finished his work. It is coming very slowly to the earth in material form because if it is brought into full swing, the personality may have to depart immediately as his work will be over. Regarding troubles of the world, nobody having material form is free. Even our avatars were not free from troubles. We might bring about the end of the troubles we get from birth to birth. If we compare ourselves with those in trouble, I am sure we will find that our pangs are in a lesser degree because there is something reigning inside which does not give rise to the seriousness of it.
This is a clue, is a practical clue for people who tend to get worried about the circumstances or the experiences in their life due to Adi Daivika, Adi Bhautika factors. People tend to worry quite a lot that nature is not kind, and then you have been, you feel that you are a victim and all that. So he says during that time, if you compare ourselves with people who are in more trouble, then, I'm sure you will find that our pangs are in lesser degree because there is something reigning inside which does not give rise to the seriousness. I have a book in front of me which is Thus Spake Sri Ramchandra. There were some abhyasis who went there, and then whenever he was speaking, they used to write down, and many of them have published those things. One of such book written by S.S. Arnott. He was the senior abhyasi who used to translate so many. He had knowledge of so many languages: Hindi, Telugu, Sanskrit, all that. So I'll just read few words which is relevant here. Like one paragraph I'm going to read, which will help you to understand what is Viveka and Vairagya. The relics of ancient kingdoms may be taken to be the best means to teach us renunciation. Like suppose you see Red Fort or Fort of Agra or Golconda Fort. If you can imagine the king there and then the soldiers or the ministers and the wealth which is there, and now they are dilapidated. The buildings are, the only bats and cobwebs there. He says the relics of ancient kingdoms may be taken to be the best means to teach us renunciation, Vairagya. Just think over. Babuji is asking us to just think over. At one time, how many kings might have displayed their pride and grandeur in these places? How dense would have been the buzzing population? Do all these not demonstrate how hollow our life is and how futile our ego? So this is one of the remarks Babuji made, and then Sri Sarnathji wrote it in his book, wrote in his diary and published it as one of the. Like the next saying he has noted down is, Babuji says, those with deep-rooted communal and parochial feelings cannot progress even in mundane matters, let alone spirituality. Once a Maulvi came to me. His spiritual progress was stagnated since there was no help available from his guru. I removed all his impediments in a single sitting and cleared the way for further progress. But you see, the person never turned up again. Does it need any other example for religious bigotry? Then another small, these are just to, it's just like reading this Silence Speaks only. Most people would not have come across these thoughts. I'm just sharing for a few. Another one is, he says, in order to attain spiritual progress, we must keep the goal before our vision always. Secondly, we must have interest in practice. Those whose purpose is limited only to get rid of worldly afflictions are not fit for Brahma Vidya, spirituality. Spirituality is not the field of the weak and the stupid. He says those whose purpose is limited only to get rid of worldly difficulties are not fit for Brahma Vidya. I thought a few, there are about almost 300 such quotes which he has gathered from his thing. Like, for example, he says, consuming liquors obstructs spiritual progress. Its intoxication suppresses divine intoxication. Then another one, he says, keeping friendship with me is also beneficial. But what can I do? People do not want even to befriend me. Then he says, in order to attain Layavastha, state of merger, devotion should be developed. All the obstructions should be removed. It is our duty to attain Layavastha in God. Another one says, Gayatri is indeed a great mantra. But since people do not know the right method of doing the japa, their intelligence grows dull instead of becoming brighter, sharper. I came across many such persons in whom too much grossness was found. They claimed that they did Gayatri japa in thousands and lakhs. See how much harm they caused to themselves. Another one, he says, anything fallen in the mine of salt will become salty. Similarly, the condition of a saint should be such that whosoever comes in contact with him should become like him. Another one, he says, I create such circumstances as to make people start thinking on their own. So if we read these things and start meditation, we should develop our intellect and we should be able to think our way through and then think about the goal and think about the obstructions which are causing us not to develop. That is what he says. My training makes me, I create such circumstances as to make people start thinking on their own. In matters pertaining to spirituality, I receive guidance from above at each step. Another one, he says, the inner link, connection with Sat, can itself be called as devotion. He says the greatest sacrifice we can make is to guard ourselves against evil thoughts. Anyway, some other time we will read. There are about 300 such quotations. They are meant to contemplate and meditate. Another point, he says, we Hindus attach much importance to external purity. We do not eat the food touched by a low caste, but we have forgotten that there is untouchability of thoughts also. Anyway, let's go ahead. Yes. Shakti padho dusra.
Limitations. Dear brother, I do not consider that the special personality can do everything, like bringing each and everybody on the path of righteousness. Even Sri Krishna Ji Maharaj could not rectify the brain of Duryodhana. And there were many such people. And finally, he had to bring about the battle of Mahabharata. Even now, it is possible that wars and bloodshed may rise to such an extent that a very large portion of the world may become devoid of population. Only those who were the devotees of Sri Ramchandraji Maharaj, Sri Krishnaji Maharaj, could get benefit from him. Therefore, Sri X cannot be correct in saying that the special personality himself shall turn the people towards spirituality. Your suggestion that we may get benefited by the special personality is extremely sound. A saint, even at his highest approach, cannot wash off humanity, because in that case, life will be extinct. This limitation will always remain, and it will play one part or the other. This is the secret of nature. So if we deeply contemplate on these paragraphs, they have got loads and loads of spiritual wealth.
That's true. The purpose of reading is to, we must have read now, and but we think that we already know. This idea that we already know about the master puts a break to our spiritual movement towards the goal. So we should read again and again. Yeah, and Babuji himself keeps on talking about Layavastha, that means merger in God. So if you keep reading him again and again, his thoughts gets imbibed into our consciousness, which is in a way Layavastha in Babuji's consciousness, which indirectly means Layavastha in God actually. So if you keep on reading him and then pay special attention, approach it with a feeling of submission, with a feeling of prayer, with a feeling of devotion, with a feeling of bhakti, then his consciousness starts, your mind starts imbibing his consciousness, and that results in what is called Layavastha, and that is itself yoga actually. And bhakti, as I told you last time, I was very impressed with the idea of Swami Vivekananda. He says, healthy, normal human being, he has got a lot of desires concerning with the external world, like sensual desires for sensory objects, for name and fame, and then for power and all that. He is powerfully attracted to power, powerfully attracted to name and fame, powerfully attracted to enjoying sensual pleasures. That's a powerful feeling is there. So Vivekananda says you should pray to God that your heart should have such a love, that the love which you have for this sensory object should be diverted towards God, and it should have the same intensity which you have for this thing. And he says you should pray that that kind of love should not leave your heart. So when your heart which is naturally moving towards sensory pleasures, is diverted towards God. That is what he calls it as bhakti. So there's a very practical definition of bhakti. If you say devotion means, now it's a very clear parameters you've got. You can examine your own mind and see how much your mind is attracted to things which you consider as external, but they are not external. They are all projection from your own mind. But you feel they're separated. They're which is existing outside your mind. That is the reality, and then you have to deal with that external world, and in the process you develop likes and dislikes. But that is the wrong view. No, it's not the correct cognition. Correct cognition comes when you merge into God, then you know the reality. But when you want to understand whether you develop bhakti or not, this is the yardstick which can help you to think correctly, actually. How much spontaneously your mind moves towards God, or thinks about the master and thinks about trying to get absorbed in his consciousness, is a yardstick. Our mind, like suppose now we are listening to him, our mind is attracted to listen to what Babuji is trying to say, because by touching his thoughts, we find a peace of mind. We feel happy, and then a kind of balance is there, a kind of peace is there. So this we clearly know. But at other times, when we lose this feeling of his presence, then our mind runs towards earning money, or enjoying, or going on a holiday, or meeting friends, or going to clubs, or whatever. So you can easily note it down in your diaries and see that if you're meditating correctly, slowly the trend of the mind should move inwards, or towards God, actually. Okay, padho Shakti. Samajh mein hai na the point which you're trying to say?
Yes, sir. So in correlation, what Swami Vivekananda ji is basically emphasizing is that if you take any material thing, like if you want to buy a house, you will make all the efforts. Your 24/7 mind is going to be thinking about ways to make it happen for you. Similarly, you will reach your relatives, you will look into your bank account, you will look into your job, you will look into other avenues to get into what is your goal, which is like forming a house. So he wants the similar level of craving to be developed when we talk about reaching master. Like,
yeah, that's right.
We have to find ways and means to be some way or the other into his consciousness, whether it is being in book reading sessions, whether reading books, whether listening to what other masters or other people have said about God, divinity.
Yeah.
So the emphasis is that the craving and the drive, materialistic possession, should be at the same level as to what it has to be for divinity. That is like what Pujya sir used to say, we have to fly with both the wings. So for materiality, if somebody is having a strong will,
you see, your point is correct, but there is a small input I want to give you. You see, the external world, I mean, so-called external world, people, your friends, the buildings, the cars, and all that. If you see from a logical or a scientific point of view, it is just a collection of atoms and molecules, that's all. But your mind enters into a relationship with this collection of with the car, or with another human being, which is nothing but a collection of atoms. So one collection of atoms you will call is my wife. So you see, our mind now says he is my wife, she's my wife, he's my father, he's my son, he's my brother, he's my same caste fellow. These are all projection of your mind. As it is, they are neutral in themselves. So if let's say in one of the section under Vairagya, Babuji says, what wrong it would be there if I ask you not to take your father as father, brother as brother, but as a part of duty. That means when the mind is free from attachment or free from aversion, that means it comes into harmony. The mind achieves harmony and it gets into correct cognition, and then that is called liberation. That means the internal world which you have created and the internal network is actually like a burden which you are carrying in our head. And once, because of training of yoga and meditation, you developed a sense of detachment, then you become free, you become liberated. So, but since our mind is got spoiled through several lives, it takes a lot of effort a lot of devotion and a lot of discipline to train your mind to see that the mind becomes like a divine mind, where it will treat everybody equally. It does not have attraction or repulsion. So it has got a sense of equanimity, like sukha dukkha samikritva. That means even pleasure will not disturb your balance, or pain or suffering will not disturb your balance. So once that comes, then that's called a state of bliss. That is what your nature is, of the nature of joy and happiness and balance and bliss. So the aim of yoga is to have that goal constantly in our mind. When you think of Babuji Maharaj, he represents balance, he represents infinity, he represents simplicity, he represents plainness. All those things, when we merge with him, we acquire the similar kind of stability in our mind, and then our goal is reached. Actually, that is the idea.
Right, sir.
Okay. Go ahead now, divine lamp.
The divine lamp gets lit to light up the whole world at one time on rare occasions when God so ordains it. It has already come down and is aglow all around. Only devoted hearts are required to gain it and be profited. Nature, with her hands outstretched, is eager today to take you in her lap. Divine grace is flowing with full force. Such a time as it is today may not be repeated again during the course of thousands of years. Even a little sacrifice today may count much in bringing forth the greatest results. May all be up with at least as much of sacrifice as might enable them to get up to the shores of the infinite ocean, where they might be able to breathe in the cool, refreshing air of the divine. It is your good fortune that alongside his primary function, the divine personality in existing today is in this unhappy world and working for the change from the end of the year 1944, is also devoting himself to your spiritual training. Those who do not take these promising features into account may have subsequently be lament for the loss when he is gone from this material world.
So Shakti, jo aap point raise kare na, that you want to buy a house and all that. That is why if we take the advice of Babuji Maharaj, that everything you have to do it as a sense of duty, or everything you have to treat it like a trustee. The God has given your wife and children and parents under your care. God has trusted you, and you have to, without undue attachment, you have to discharge your duties because God has trusted in your capacities to look after people dependent upon you. So if you have that attitude, then you will not create a network of likes and dislikes. So you will not form samskaras. And if samskaras are not formed, the mind becomes purer and purer. And gradually mind attains the capacity to feel the full glory of God inside you.
Right, sir.
But this is a practice. I mean, now it is all theoretical understanding in our mind. With practice, it becomes a spiritual insight for us. And then spiritual insight actually solves the problem of life, and your behavior will be in tune with the will of God, and then you'll be peaceful. Now we are fighting with God. Our desires we feel that our desires are more important, and then they're more valuable, and then if our desires are thwarted, we get depressed, and then but nature doesn't care whether you are happy or unhappy. It goes as per certain rules and laws. So if you train our mind with obedience and surrender and accept everything as the will of God, then there is no fight. So, and you are in harmony with God. So then your problem is solved. You are in perpetual bliss if your mind is in harmony with God.
Sir, even the message of today is giving a very valuable hint.
Message.
Most of us would have read this, that total vacuum is God alone. When we merge in divinity, the state of vacuum begins to dissolve itself. It comes to the nearest. So he himself is saying that vacuum, when we can think of vacuum, it is what he's referring to as God. And as what you are also saying, the more mind becomes pure, the more we get nearer to that state of vacuum. That's the basically path and goal that everyone of us has to work towards.
He has written what happens as you meditate more and more, as you do cleaning more and more, the thoughts become less and less. Thoughts will be there, but those thoughts generally, they'll be of a divine nature. Like you will be thinking that everybody should be happy and they should have the causes of happiness. You will be thinking that everybody should be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. You should be free that everybody should have joy and you should have all the causes of joy. Like that, that is you will be having thoughts related to universal love actually. And you will be thinking that everybody should develop love for God, bhakti for God. You will start thinking that everybody should have equanimity or balance mind. Thoughts of those natures come. So they will be very, very light, and then you can they hardly have be aware of them, and they'll be pleasant also. The mind will be in so calm and peaceful. It will be difficult to put it in words also.
Right, sir.
Anything else, Dharmesh?
No, I think we can meet next Sunday.
We'll meet next Sunday. Okay.
Thank you.